Welcome to the December 2020 Park and Recreation Commission meeting. Let's see here. Welcome to all our guests out here too. Anybody who might be calling in. First order of business here is approval of the agenda. You've gotten that in your packets.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and second to approve the December 14, 2020 agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to minutes from the November meetings. We had the regular meeting, which the minutes were in the packet from November 9th. You've had a chance to read over those, and any changes or additions anybody sees? Otherwise, we'd look for a motion to approve those.
We'll move. I'll second it.
All right, motion and second to approve the November 9th, 2020 meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, then there was a work session that followed that, and the meeting minutes are provided, or the work session minutes are provided there for you, or provided in the packet. Any additions or changes there? Otherwise, we'd like a motion on that.
So move.
Second.
All right, motion and second to approve the work session minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Next up, we come to the city council meeting recap. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. There's been 2 city council meetings since our last commission meeting. On November 13th, saw a special adjourned meeting to approve the canvassing of the general election and declare the results. Then there was a regular meeting on November 13th. The city council appointed Eric Warmka to fill the vacant Ward 2 seat. They had the second reading and adoption of the 2021 fee schedules. And then they awarded the sale, basically our final sale of the Renew bonds of $7.745 million. And then the December 1st regular city council meeting saw the swearing in of new city councilor Eric Warmka, and they accepted the donations you recommended they accept. And then there was a budget hearing after that, later on December 1st, and the city council conducted the 2021 Truth in Taxation budget hearing with no significant changes recommended to the budget at that time. And we anticipate them adopting the budget tomorrow at the regular city council meeting on December 15th. That's it for city council action over the past month related to Park and Rec.
All right, thank you, Director Schmitz. Anybody have any questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to old business. Renew update. Director Schmitz, can you give us an update?
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. We all know that Johnson Park and Herman Heights Park are complete, 100% complete as far as the Renew projects go, and we're anticipating mayoral ribbon cuttings next year in the spring or summer, pending the status of the virus. And then, of course, our last big project is the Recreation Center. We're estimating approximately 30% complete. I think we all know what the major indoor improvements are, including the new aquatic center, an indoor playground, the gymnastics center going into the old swimming pool, the former swimming pool, and then an expanded fitness center. We will also be making some updates and replacements in Vogel Fieldhouse, including replacement of the Renew 1 flooring that was put in the early 2000s, and the curtains in the gymnasium in the field house being replaced with netting, and also water sprinkling, fire suppression water sprinkling system coming into that part of the building, all of the old portions of the building. And we're still on schedule for completion in August of next year, late summer 2021. We also realized that late in March or early in April, we will close the entire campus to the public and move the fitness components over to the Civic Center and Community Center and elsewhere. So the public will have no access to the Recreation Center campus basically in the spring and summer, as all these projects are being completed related to Renew and the Recreation Center. So that's it for Renew updates. Any questions?
Thank you, Director Schmitz. All right, the next on the old business section is our next park. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Vorwick and members. Okay, you have in your packet, it's page 11 of 40 in the packet. And this has to do with the criteria and the ranking system we plan to utilize to rank the various areas in our community that do not have a neighborhood park. So I'd like you to take a moment here and kind of review that. You also have in the packet the comprehensive plan, which is of course our guiding document for community development and new park, establishing new parks. There's that key page in our comprehensive plan that shows the park service areas. I'm bringing it up now also on the monitors here. As you can see, there's these various circles denoting it's 3 to 4 block radius in these circles, and the comprehensive plan shows planned parks A through H, and so we'll get into that a little bit further here in our discussion. And then what I'd like to point out is there's a handout that you've received that has a little bit more information than what went out into the packet last Thursday. So let's pull that up first of all. And I'm going to pull that up on the monitors here also. Okay, so this first page lists 1 through 6. These are park areas or areas in our community that are deemed by staff as possibly ready for land acquisition and or development. And you see a number of columns here. The first column is basically the name of the park or the name of the area. They could be undeveloped parks. And then the location or street address, and then another column of whether they're designated as parklands by the city. And then another column showing whether they're owned or not by the city. Approximate number of acres in the next column, and then some notes. All the verbiage there are notes and information. So I will just kind of highlight a few things here. Number 1 is the Upper Cottonwood Street area, which includes the Dakota West subdivision. Number 2 is Maplewood. Well, even before I go on beyond that, I'll point out that these, of course, are all in the well, they're not all necessarily in the comprehensive plan. The first one, Upper Cottonwood Street, is in the comprehensive plan as a planned future park denoted by the letter G. I think we all realize that there's land available for purchase. The city does not own any land, and it's not been designated, as we know. There's potential for some other uses up there, including right-of-way, city, street, and utilities. And, the potential for more homes to be developed up there. One key aspect of this part is the fact that walking or bicycling to a developed neighborhood park with a playground is not reasonable for people living in Upper Cottonwood Street. Number 2 is Maplewood.
Director Schmitz,
Yes.
on item number 1, there isn't any mention of the county land. Should that be in there?
Yes, the 3 lots in Dakota West that are available through tax forfeiture. That needs to be added, correct. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So we're just going to kind of do a broad overview here, and please, speak up if you want to add something or see something that needs to be changed. Maplewood Park on the north end of town is an undeveloped, designated, and owned park. The MR Paving and Excavating Corporation has an active gravel mining operation nearby. And it is in a portion of the community where there are enough homes to consider it as needing development. It hasn't been, one of the reasons it hasn't been developed yet is that it's on Maplewood Drive. Lower Maplewood Drive has been completed, and connected to Garden Street has been completed. Upper Maplewood Drive connected to Highland Avenue has been completed. And Central Maplewood Drive has not been completed, but it is anticipated to be completed this year or next year. So once that's done, there will be, public access to this parkland alongside, adjacent to a street. Fender Park, I think we know where that is. Milford Heights addition, owned and designated, but undeveloped. And right across the street, 5th North from the partially developed Highland Park. I would recommend that Fender Park be viewed in conjunction with Highland Park and be developed as a adjacent park units. And so, there are enough homes in that part of the hilltop that would warrant development here. But the detailed plan for developing the park has not been put together yet. Number 4, South Goosetown. It is not designated, but the city does own some land along the Minnesota River berm and the former Putting Green Environmental Learning Center location, which is also home to the current community garden. So there isn't, there's city-owned land. It's not designated as parkland. It's not necessarily in the comprehensive plan, but there's a potential for servicing some people on the south end of town. Number 5, North Broadway.
Tom,
Yes.
but that South Goosetown, that Minnesota River berm, that 1300 South Front, is that like the right-of-way we had talked about that goes into the berm?
Yes, the city owns the berm from 13th South Front Street to 20th South.
I mean, there's an alley, dead-end alley right-of-way, the community development director and I talked about, that actually goes nowhere, the street,
Yes.
and we're never gonna build there. There won't be any, it hooks the alley part, there won't be any structures built there, homes built there. I was just wondering if that was being included in that one other parcel of property we had looked at.
Let's see if I can pull that up here on Google Earth. You say, is that near 13th?
Oh yeah, if you find, is it God's
This is-
building?
Yeah. I mean, this is the end of the city-owned berm. This is Front Street. No, it actually would be back here. Yeah, this is the GOG area. This is
Right,
13 South. So are you referring to this?
right.
Yeah, that's part of all the land from there to the south is city-owned.
Correct, that's what I thought.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We actually did some agreements back there for people to put sheds or pile wood
Right.
but the city owns that. That's not really on this list, that we actually own that.
Goosetown Park. Here is the concept that we reviewed over the past few years. This is all city-owned
There it is,
land
right.
on south and near Minnesota River. Former Putting Green Environmental Learning Center, active community garden over here along 20th South, and then the city-owned berm up the Front Street. So that's this city-owned land on the southeast part of town. as far as serving South Goosetown, there may be other concepts and ideas, but there's no other city-owned land that I'm aware of in quote-unquote South Goosetown. Thank you, Councilor Christian, for that information. North Broadway is kind of by the Pollinator Park. This extreme North Broadway, there's a lot of city-owned land along the Minnesota River, and there's potential for further development out here. The Pollinator Park is right about here in this vicinity by my cursor. This is 23rd North, and this is North Broadway. This is basically all city-owned land. There's two big holding ponds here. Of course, that water retention, stormwater ponds that we would not be changing at all. But you can see homes. This is Trolloc Estates, mobile home court. This is Huffman Addition. And then not too far away is Lakeside Village. This is Google Earth, and it's a little bit old. There's a number of more homes out here in Lakeside Village than are depicted here. But that is the North Broadway concept in the comprehensive plan as Park D as in dog. Number 6 is Lakeside Village. I think we're all aware of that. That there is a owned and designated small park right here. But also in the comprehensive plan, they're suggesting a larger park over here on this side of the lake, which is, of course, privately owned, and we're not aware of an interest in that land becoming available soon. So we'll really get down to the potential of 6 areas in town that staff views are potentially eligible for, near-term development of a neighborhood park. The ones that we view as not ready yet: North Highland. This is kind of the Wakes Addition Park across from the senior high. The street's not in there yet, and it's cropland. When the streets go in, like including 12th North, we would anticipate the ability to develop that, similar to Washington or Lincoln Park of size. South Market, an urban wilderness area we've had since the origins of our community. Similar, on the original plat, just like North Market Park. South Market Park is a wet area on the bicycle recreational trail. And it would require some extensive topographical changes, and further study needs to be undertaken before neighborhood park development could take place there between German Street and the recreational trail. So possible potential down the road, but certainly some significant topography issues. And then 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all in the comprehensive plan with nothing pressing or urgent for our consideration. Extreme North Highland and Garden Street, the KC Road, the Community Athletic Complex, and Upper Cottonwood Street, way out, well south of city limits and so on. So those, I would say, we don't need to rank or consider at this point. I think we're kind of down to these 6 park areas. And actually the work before us today would be this criteria. What you think about how we're going to rank which area is more deserving than others. Number 1 is whether or not it's in the comprehensive plan, and the land ownership. Are there household units now? Is it designed for the area designed for future household units? Number of children, linear feet to get to a playground in an existing park? Topographical challenges? Is it safe to get to the nearest developed park? Engage residents? Health, socioeconomic challenges? So, I think we should open it up for discussion, trying to come upon an agreement on our criteria and ranking matrix.
Director Schmitz, may I ask a question maybe of Counselor as well? Can you recap is the direction from the city council to, was there discussion about this at their work session recently? And was the direction for the Park and Rec Commission to assess this list, but further define it and then bring it back to
Right.
city council for
We
approval?
want to hear from the Park and Rec, their ranking
Okay.
system. That was discussed that evening.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one question, Tom. Do other cities do this? I know they say estimated number of children presently in the area, and in the future in the area. You know, that changes over years. Do more other cities use that?
Some do and some don't, Councilor Christian. It's also kind of, some of these things are difficult to quantify.
Right.
You know, I mean, how are we going to count that? And it's in the socioeconomic and health challenges. How do you quantify some of this stuff? So yeah, I have put in a proposed ranking scale, trying to keep the numbers low, so we don't have to decide between, 8 and 9 out of a scale of 10. As you can see, it's either 0 or 1 or 0, 1, 2, 3. I have not put in a proposed ranking scale for areas that I don't know if we can quantify, but some things we can. Linear feet. How many feet between the middle of Dakota West subdivision and the South Park Playground? Or the Lincoln Park's wading pool? That we can measure, and we'll quantify that if directed to do so.
Tom, can you define the Parkland Dedication Fund and number 13?
Yes. The Parkland Dedication Fund is a special fund in the Finance Department in which developers pay into, whether it's the various types of development, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial development. And that money is meant to only be spent on land acquisition or development of neighborhood parks. It cannot be spent for special use parks, single use parks like the dog park or the, pollinator park or the trap range, archery range. It can only be spent for neighborhood park land acquisition and development that can be used by everyone and anyone. And there's, I think, over $200,000 in that fund. I've been here 15 years, and we've only spent a little bit out of that fund at Fender Park to pay for our part of the right-of-way improvements. The sidewalk and the boulevard and half of the street of Fender Drive adjacent to undeveloped Fender Park. That's the only thing we've spent money on in 15 years related to this fund. Because we haven't developed a neighborhood park yet.
But does that money need to be used on a new development, even though the source is coming through developers? That can be used at the discretion of the city council?
Yes, it can be used and authorized to be spent by the city council for land acquisition and/or development of a neighborhood park.
Okay.
A full public use park area that would be available for all users. Great question.
I have a question. What constitutes enough occupied homes?
I don't think, Commissioner Floor and members, I don't think that there is a magic number or a magic percentage. It's just something to consider when making a decision.
I guess I'd like to share with the commissioners my opinion on the other considerations, and letter B is there nearby private park area. Unless we ask that question of other neighborhoods, I don't think that that's a fair question. We don't, unless we were to look at a neighborhood and just say, oh, 50% of those homes have a playground in their backyard, so that, the city shouldn't need to provide then a park space. Unless we're going to ask that same question of other developed neighborhoods, I don't think it's fair that we ask that question of mobile home parks. So I think we should remove that consideration from our ranking.
Tom, would you explain number 8, please?
Number 8, the topographical elevation difference from center of area to nearest developed park. That basically, this has to do with the ability to walk or bicycle from your home to a playground. And if your nearest playground, if you lived at the bottom of 10 South, the 10 South Hill, and the nearest playground was Nels Park, that would be deemed, I would rank that as, you'd get a 3, as it's very difficult to get from the bottom of 10 South up to Summit Avenue. So that's what that has to do with, versus someone living on Front Street and needing to get over to Riverside Park Playground. Front Street is all at one elevation.
Thank you.
Getting back to Commissioner Bugler's point, is that in the criteria?
It's other considerations B, if you scroll down to the very bottom.
Okay, all right, there
Yeah.
we go, okay.
Just a couple other opinions I'd like to share with the commission. Number 14 is a very,
Subjective.
yes, is it expensive? What does expensive mean? Maybe that should instead be, what is the cost to develop an average park, or, and we use that 14 the same we would look at the number of household units or the estimated number of children. It's a data point and a fact that can compare the two as it's weighing on decisions, but that would be my recommendation for 14. And then 15 and 2A3 is there private funding or donations. That's twice. So I think we should pick one or the other. Also would encourage the group that looks at this as, that's focusing potentially on a more affluent neighborhood. So if the number 12, the socioeconomic challenges that a certain neighborhood may be facing, is it going to outweigh those two or not? How much weight should we put on donations being received for a specific neighborhood upon the decision?
So your question about the duplication, I think one's land acquisition and one's land development or park development. I think that's your distinction between those two.
Okay.
But I'm thinking we need to come up with a weighting system or something for some of these. Some of these questions are more important. Safety should be weighted really high. If people are having to cross a river to get to a park or whatever. So I think we need to have a work session to kind of figure out what the criteria even mean. What's the difference between yes and some on some of these? You know what I'm saying? We should have a defined. This range of data points would be a yes or whatever. And not everything we can probably do that to, but I think we need to further define before we can send this on.
I'm going to piggyback on what Commissioner Bugler said there. Go back to that number 14. I mean, as a counselor, I'd actually like to see that one taken off of there. I go back what I voted on, previous councils, the millions of dollars we have put into our premier parks, we didn't bat an eyelid at it. Now to start critiquing these, I see that coming back to haunt us. I do. I mean, you voted to spend $500,000 on this playground equipment or $250,000, but now you're saying our park is too expensive. It's just gonna create problems, in my mind. And I will bring that up to council if that stays there, because that one I think will come back to haunt us.
Are we looking at on that one though, is the park expensive for the city? Are we looking at the land, having to purchase land and everything
Well,
else,
it's
not
all in
just
one.
the equipment?
Right, it's all in-
That's
it's
where
all
that
in
can
one.
make a huge difference too.
Right.
So, number 11, how do you quantify that? I mean, how do you define that?
The only way commissioners know how to do that would be through the medical center and our medical institutions. I think
So
they
what would
have-
an example
Is that what we're going
of good or bad health?
I don't know. I wonder
Yeah.
if Commissioner
Well,
Bugler.
at our last meeting, we shared a document that showed where there are higher prevalences per capita or for that neighborhood of chronic illness in that community. So I think that's the basis for the question. Or that in that neighborhood, do they see a higher incidence of chronic illness and other, health, public health challenges in that neighborhood than others may see?
My question when it comes to that is, are we taking it from Alina? Because we have numerous people in the city that do not doctor in New Ulm. So that makes it kind of unfair. We don't know the actual,
I think it's the best
Amounts.
data that we can get when it comes to health. We could have public health also provide that information, but we're not going to get it for neighborhood. And it does include up to 95% of community members here. So it's
And is
every
that-
data point. It is not perfect. That is, an excellent point, but it is a significant majority of our community.
And is that an ongoing, data stream? Or is it just,
Yes, it can be shared at any time and updated. I think the basis of the question is there are neighborhoods in our community that face different challenges than other neighborhoods, and providing a space that encourages health and activity, should we be considering those neighborhoods as an asset to that neighborhood to help improve overall health?
I think we should add to that then, based on, the numbers coming from our local medical center. I think we need to define where the information's coming for that.
Yes, commissioners, I think that's what we're doing here now, is trying to figure out what we want to change in this proposed criteria ranking system. And there's been great input, great ideas from all of you. And so,
Would it be appropriate to have another work session to kind of talk through some of these things, to come up with more complete rankings and more criteria for what the rankings are?
I definitely think that given your input, it requires more work.
Yeah.
Yes.
It feels like this is a big decision that many important decisions will be based upon, and
Right,
there's been
right.
just excellent discussion up until this point, but it does seem like a smaller group that could bring it back would be helpful.
Yes, so I would say definitely come January, early January, we should plan for a work session, preferably before our next meeting, so that action could take place at our meeting in January. The other thing I'd like to continue to point out is, this list of 6 areas. 6 areas in our community that don't have a neighborhood park nearby. And, certainly we want to come up with this criteria and ranking system. But we also want to focus on, which of these next 6 neighborhoods should get attention first.
One thing we got, we all got emails from a person regarding Dakota West Park there. He was concerned with that. I talked to him today several times, and he's really concerned about location of the park, the cost of the park, and do people want to park out there? He suggested maybe surveying the people in that area on where they want to park, do they want to park, etc. Get their feedback.
Well, in looking at this, the criteria list, number 10, are there engaged residents requesting a park or willing to maintain a park? Is that our job as commissioners or staff's jobs, Park and Rec staff job to go out and survey or to generate conversation with community members and neighbors about, hey, we're thinking of putting a park in South Goosetown. What do you think about that? Are we, how are we letting people know that there's 6 parks, if we're saying that these 6 parks could happen sooner than, the 12 parks? And are we putting that out there, or is it just, are we waiting to hear from certain neighbors and just waiting, and then when the squeaky wheel squeaks enough, then we give them,
Well, he said that there's about 30% who do not like the location of a park at Dakota West. That's his figures, but, should we survey the people out there, see what they really want? Do they want a park out there? Where do they want it? The concern about the cost of a park.
And they have approached us before, prior.
Pardon me?
The Dakota West stuff, they have approached us before about, there's a group.
Right.
That'd be me. Saying yes or saying no?
That they
'Cause-
want it.
Okay, because from the email, right, that they've said some that don't want it. So
Right.
So I think we're getting a little off track here, where we're trying to get a priority, criteria system here, and we're kind of debating
I really
specific
think that
parks.
the survey would be the way to go. I mean, if there's half the people in, I'm just giving an example, half at Dakota West, half don't, well, are we doing the right thing?
Yep.
right.
We go to Trolloc Estates, is there more people there that want it or don't? I mean, if there's 10% that want it and 90 don't, probably ain't the best place to put the park, I think.
Director, have we ever surveyed? Has the Park and Rec Commission or staff ever surveyed New Ulm community members?
We've done surveying when it comes to what people want in their master plan. Like we surveyed for Herman Heights and a number of different parks that have a master conceptual plan. And we've talked to the community at large and then, of course, neighbors.
Okay.
But what we're talking about here, we have not done. No.
Okay.
Surveying, for instance, these 6 areas of our community when it comes to the potential for a new park. But yeah, so that's another aspect of this discussion that I think is valuable and that we can try to put into the equation.
So is it worth it to survey the areas and then the top ones that come back, then go through the criteria and rate them?
That's a possibility also.
What comes
Rather than
first?
to
Yes.
just random
Yeah.
try it.
The risk with that, the only risk with that is you don't hear from a neighborhood. It doesn't necessarily mean that they do want it or they don't want it. They don't return the survey and we weigh too much on that information. We could be at risk of those who, didn't respond or feel as though they don't have a voice to share. Puts that a little bit at risk, I
I
think.
think going back then to Commissioner Vorwerk's, then we have to wait that answer. So whatever information we do get back from community members, and we have to weight it, I guess,
Yeah.
what we.
Yeah, that might be
Just a comment on that with the surveys and whatnot, all excellent ideas. A month or two ago, I had announced to the commission here that we were really happy to have this new community engagement policy go into place. Well, as you're all aware, we're probably not going to get to use it for 6, 8 months, 10 months. I don't have the answer for that because parks was actually one of the first ones we were going to do. What's our community think of the park system? Do you want more parks? Which route should we go? I'm not blaming anybody. I won't even say China, but whatever, that's going to be one of our first ones. We have to wait. That was going to be one of our advertise it. Let's get the community input on it. We can't do that right now.
I think the community should just have an objective policy about parks. I mean, if we leave it subjective, I don't understand that. That, we have a policy, this is how we do parks in our community, and it's not like we're pulling money out of, a certain neighborhood's hands to put a park there. It's just we have an objective policy in our community that we have neighborhood parks.
Do we have that policy?
Is it
There
a
was
part of
supposed to be
this?
a park within so many blocks.
It's in the
of-
comprehensive plan, yes, chapter 5 of the comprehensive plan. So Chair, I think we do have a resident here who wants to speak.
Yep. You state your name and address, please.
Tracy Winchell, 1309 Settler Trail. Sorry, I've been speaking all day for my job, so my voice is hoarse. A couple things that I want you to think about and consider as for parks. One, the cost, just like Councilor Christian said, and I have stated several times before, because I've been to several of these meetings along with city council meetings, is that I've put, as a taxpayer, a lot of money into the Renew project, into parks that aren't for my neighborhood. And so when coming down to how much it is, it's not fair that you can spend millions of dollars on the new Herman Park or German Park, but you can't give me just a simple playground, because in Dakota West, you have to purchase the property. So to me, that's not really fair to think about that. It's also not fair to think about how much money goes in or how much people have put into a account for a park. Because in my community, I know you said whoever it was that emailed you that thought 30% of them did not want a park, but you have to think about the other 70% who have young kids. We're paying daycare. We don't have extra money to put into a park budget. Same with anyone in poverty or with lower income. They don't have money to put in to a park budget either, especially now with COVID. A lot of people are getting hit. A lot of people were laid off and so forth. Another piece that I want you to think about is how easy is it to get to a park? Of course, I'm going to tell you that I feel like Dakota needs one, but going down a big hill, just like what Tom said, if you're living on 10 South and walking up that big hill, if you've ever walked up Cottonwood Street, it's not an easy street. Usually it's flooded, and that's something to think about too, is flooding or flooding close to parks and things like that. So I really want you to consider all of those things. I know you're not here today to make a decision, but to really come up with a concept. So those are all things that I ask for you to think about.
Thank you. All right. So at this point, we're probably not ready to do a motion or anything. We probably wanted to do some more work centered on this. Would that be accurate?
Tom, did you want to set a date to have a special work session, or do it after a park meeting? You mentioned about having it done
Like it before the park meeting.
I would like to get a decision at the next regular meeting. So I will send out an email this week with a scheduling poll on it so that we can put together a work session later this month or very early in the next month. And between now and then, I'll also update our criteria sheet on all this great information that has been voiced today. So I would just suggest you move and second and take action to direct staff to update the criteria sheet with this new information and schedule a work session for the commission.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion to that effect?
Motion to make the changes and in the near future, set up a work session.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Motion and second to update the criteria and set a work set. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I
Yeah.
comment on that?
Yes.
And maybe give us a recommendation of how to weight the different questions?
Correct.
Thank you.
So does the motion have to be amended a little bit to there? Or,
I'll amend it with
okay.
Bob's.
And agreed? Okay.
Yes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to new business. Donations. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. We have had two donations requested to be sent to the city over the past month. Very significant donations, and I'll read those into the record. First of all, $100,000 cash, fulfilling their matching pledge, honoring Janet and Terry Dempsey from anonymous donors for the German Park Amphitheater. This was a $100,000 matching pledge that was made a few months ago in honor of the Dempseys from anonymous donors. And so with the granting of funds from the state for the stage structure, that has filled out that need, and the pledge of $100,000 has been delivered to the finance department. Secondly, for Riverside Park Environmental Learning Center materials and programming, $3,000 offered to the city from the New Ulm Isaac Walton League chapter here in town. So those two donations totaling $103,000 in cash. I recommend you forward it on to the city council for their acceptance.
All right. Any discussion on that? Or any motion on that, actually?
I make a motion, we put it to the city council.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second to accept the donations as listed by Director Schmitz. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, the election of the 2021 officers.
Yes, Chair Vorwerk and members, this is the annual meeting of the year in December, the final meeting of the year in which you need to elect a chair and a chairperson, two individuals, for next year's commission meeting. And I think we also want to recognize any commissioners that are leaving the commission. I know that Commissioner Melanie Griebel is at our last meeting of her tenure with the Park and Recreation Commission. And very much thank you, Melanie, and I'm sure the commission does also.
Yes.
Thank you.
So she will not be eligible to run for chair or vice chair. I think Melanie is the only one that is leaving us, and the mayor has found a replacement who will step into that seat come January. Yes. So the rest of you need to decide on who's going to run for chair, and maybe do that one at a time, either vice chair or chair first.
Okay.
Ask for nominations.
So I need to open nominations for chairperson. And I'd like to nominate Bob Skillings.
Second.
Any other? All right. What's the procedure then here? Do we have to do a voice vote or?
I'll move the nomination C, excuse me, and elect Bob Skillings.
I second.
Okay, now we have to do a vote
Yes,
on the, okay. So, and we're voting on all in favor of Bob Skillings
as chair.
as chair. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, and now we will go on to vice chairperson. Like open nominations for that.
Nominate Carissa Bugler.
Second.
Any other nominations? So then we have to close nominations then?
You need to make certain that the nominee is willing
Oh,
to
yeah.
accept.
Is she willing to do it?
I accept the nomination. Thank you.
I move the nomination cease and elect Carissa Bugler as vice chair.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of Carissa as the vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Lastly, or next up is Herman Heights Park Tree and Shrub Planting Plan.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. You have in the packet the latest conceptual plan for tree and shrub planting at Herman Heights Park. This has been put together by staff and a number of consultants. And the Herman Monument Society has reviewed this and endorses this plan. And so if you have had a chance to review it and would like to take actions to endorse it, or you can review it and hopefully endorse it at your next meeting. Maybe just a few highlights I'll try to point out. I'm trying to get this bigger. But I'll just kind of point out on the monitors here, as you come into the new Monument Street off of Center, after dark, you have car headlights shining right into this home, where my cursor is. And so we're planning on some coniferous plantings. These are, evergreens, so arborvitae and spruce and so on, to shield some of the neighbors, some of the residences from car lights. Likewise, as you leave Monument Street, your car headlights at dark will shine into this house over here. So we do have some coniferous evergreen plantings for some of the boundary properties, neighbors. The rest of the plantings are shade trees or ornamentals. It's all about anti-skin cancer shade trees, providing shade for people and vehicles and so on, along with some ornamentals. This little walkway has got some ornamental, colorful trees. The key is that we're not planting any trees with fruits, nuts, berries that will cause problems. So if we've got crab apples in the plan, they will be non-fruit bearing crab apples. So I think it's a good plan. It may take it may take more than 1 year to get all these in the ground, but over time it's well more than twice the number of trees that were taken down for the project. Almost 3 times as many trees that were taken down would be planted. So,
One question for you, Tom. Did Tree Commission, have they been sent this also?
they meet every 2 months, so the first time they'll have official action will be their next meeting, which is the first Thursday of January.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, it will be going through the Herman Monument Society, the Park and Rec Commission, the Tree Advisory Commission, at least those 3 groups before it goes to City Council.
My only question is, we moved the driveway so that you could see traffic but we're putting trees in right next to the driveway going down that way? Are they gonna be set back far enough that it's not gonna cause a problem with trying to see the traffic coming up the hill yet?
Yes, Commissioner Griebel and others. I think you're referring to these
Yep.
5.
I think it meets that 40-foot triangle, doesn't it? It
Yes.
looks like it on this print.
Yes. I think we had 6 trees in here, and we moved one out at the intersection because of that same
Okay.
point. So we'll double check that, but my understanding is that is deemed safe from a traffic engineering standpoint. Any other comments?
Okay, we don't need to do any action on this, correct?
If you're willing to endorse the plan now, please do so. Otherwise, I'll be bringing it back to you next month
Oh,
to endorse the plan or support it.
I would move our endorsement.
I'll second that.
all right. There's a motion and a second to endorse the tree and shrub planting plan. Any discussion, further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, Director Schmitz, reports from reports from staff, department activity report.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. You have in the packet the November 2020 activity report. If you have any questions, I'll try to address those. The only other thing I'd like to add from a staff standpoint is we're certainly waiting for the reopening of our fitness centers by the state of Minnesota. We don't know when that's going to come, but we monitor that daily, and we anticipate the governor presenting something, I think, Wednesday of this week. Because as you know, the Civic Center has been closed. No hockey or ice skating going on, and the Recreation Center has been closed, all the fitness activities. We understand the importance of adhering to health guidelines related to the virus, and so we have adhered to those, and we'll wait and see what happens. But we're hopefully anticipating a reopening at some time in the not too distant future. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments from the commission related to the department and/or its activity report.
Okay, do we need a motion to file that report?
I'll move to approve the November report.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to accept and order filed the November 2020 department activity report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Are there any staff reports?
The only other staff report I might have would be the fact that the accessibility project is complete at Riverside Park in the building, the Environmental Learning Center. If you haven't had a chance to get down there and view that, please do so. Wonderful ramp system and a large outdoor learning space on the riverside of the building and multi-purpose event deck and a new door that goes into the building. So that project has been completed and landscaped. We're very excited about another mayoral ribbon cutting in the spring or summer, and much activity taking place outdoors of the Environmental Learning Center, Riverside Park. Great addition.
And the last of our ADA projects, Tom, 15 years,
Yes. Yes. All of our park buildings are now accessible.
fully ADA compliant.
Yes, compliant.
I have a question.
Yes.
Tom, there's a new structure at Johnson Field. Can you enlighten us about that?
Yes, Commissioner Skillings and members, the storage building has been partially completed at the Johnson Athletic Complex. The storage building at the Art Wall Park is going to be decommissioned and demolished. And so we needed a storage building, and that was the best location in our system for a new storage building. So we have basically a tin pole barn shed there at Johnson between the baseball and football field for city supplies and equipment. It will have a concrete pad poured in there for a floor next year, spring and summer. But that project has been completed. Yeah, great question. Thought there was something else I was going to say about that, but now I can't remember. Yes, another great project completed.
All right. Are there any commissioner reports? There There being done, our next meeting is scheduled for January 10th, 2021. And if there's nothing else, we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Grable.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
City Council